In the heart of Kentucky, where the earth is a honeycomb of limestone and shadow, William Floyd Collins was born on July 20th, 1887. His world was one of hardscrabble tenant farming, a life dictated by the seasons and the soil. But for young Floyd, the true mysteries weren't in the sky above, but in the ground beneath his feet. This region, known as the Karst Belt, is riddled with sinkholes and hidden entrances to a subterranean world, and it called to him from a very early age. While other boys played in the fields, Floyd was drawn to the darkness. He was a quiet, solitary child, more comfortable in the silent company of stone than in the boisterous world of men. He would spend countless hours exploring, squeezing through tight crevices with nothing but a flickering lantern and an unshakable curiosity. This wasn't just a childhood hobby. It was a profound, all-consuming passion. He was learning the language of the underground, the subtle drafts of air that signaled a new passage, the feel of different rock formations under his fingertips. He was mapping this hidden kingdom in his mind, driven by a desire to see what no one had ever seen before. For Floyd, the caves were a refuge, a challenge, and a promise of something more than the back-breaking labor that defined his family's existence. By his late 20s, Floyd's reputation as an expert caver was well established locally. He knew the underground labyrinth of central Kentucky better than anyone, but his explorations were no longer just for the thrill of discovery. He dreamed of finding a show cave, a cavern so spectacular it could rival the world-famous Mammoth cave just a few miles away. Such a discovery would be his ticket to fortune, a way to lift his family from poverty and secure his own legacy. For years, he searched tirelessly on his father's property. Then in 1917, his persistence paid off. He found it, a modest opening on a hillside that led into a wonderland of calcite and gypsum. He named it Crystal Cave. The initial descent was perilous, but what he found inside was breathtaking. It was an underground art gallery sculpted by time itself, filled with delicate branching helictites that defied gravity, and vast draperies of flowstone that shimmered like frozen waterfalls. Unlike the grand cavernous rooms of Mammoth Cave, Crystal was intimate, a jewel box of rare and beautiful formations. Floyd poured his heart, soul, and what little money he had into transforming his discovery into a viable tourist attraction. He single-handedly cleared pathways, built rudimentary stairs, and prepared the cave for visitors. He hoped the sheer beauty of its formations would be enough to draw the crowds, and for a while, it was. Tourists came, marveling at the unique gypsum gardens he had unveiled. But Floyd quickly learned that discovering a cave was one thing. Running a successful business was another entirely. He had entered the tourism game at its most ferocious, a period that would go down in local history as the Kentucky Cave Wars. This was a brutal, no-holds-barred conflict for every tourist dollar. The region was dotted with small, privately owned caves, all competing for the traffic heading towards the colossal Mammoth Cave. Cave owners employed aggressive salesmen known as cappers or touts, who would patrol the highways, flagging down cars and using deception to lure them away from competitors. They would lie, claiming rival caves were closed, flooded, or simply not worth seeing. Road signs were routinely vandalized, moved, or replaced with misleading directions, sending tourists on wild goose chases that often ended at the saboteur's own cave entrance. There were even accounts of property damage and physical intimidation. Floyd, a quiet and unassuming man, was ill-suited for this kind of cutthroat business. His Crystal Cave, though magnificent, was off the main road, making it an easy target for the capper's schemes. He saw tourists who had intended to visit his cave being diverted to his rivals. The dream that had shone so brightly was being extinguished by the harsh reality of competition. The meager profits were not enough to support his family or to further develop the cave. The pressure mounted and a new, more desperate obsession began to take hold. If Crystal Cave couldn't compete, he would find another one, a bigger one. A cave so grand it couldn't be ignored, one that might even connect to the vast Mammoth Cave system itself. This quest would lead him to a small, unassuming hole on a neighbor's property, a place known as Sand Cave. It was a gamble that he believed would finally bring him the fame and fortune he so desperately craved. Instead, it would seal his fate. In the early 20th century, the rolling hills of Kentucky were not just farmland, they were a battleground. This was the era of the Kentucky Cave Wars, a period of ruthless competition fueled by the immense popularity of Mammoth Cave. The discovery of its vast subterranean halls had ignited a tourism gold rush. Fortunes were being made, and every landowner with a sinkhole on their property dreamed of finding the next geological marvel. The competition was fierce and often dirty. Rival cave owners would post misleading signs, hire aggressive salesmen known as cappers to literally flag down cars and divert tourists, and sometimes even resort to vandalism and sabotage. It was a high-stakes business where location was everything and discovery was the key to survival. The Collins family was already entrenched in this world. Their property, Crystal Cave, discovered by Floyd himself in 1917, was a genuine spectacle of delicate gypsum formations. But it had a fatal flaw. It was remote, tucked away miles from the main tourist thoroughfares. In the cutthroat landscape of the cave wars, a difficult journey meant few visitors and even fewer profits. Crystal Cave, for all its beauty, was a financial drain, a constant source of frustration for a family struggling to get by. The pressure to find a more commercially viable cave fell squarely on the shoulders of the man who knew the underground world better than anyone. William Floyd Collins was more than just a farmer. He was a force of nature, a man possessed by a singular, all-consuming passion, the unmapped darkness beneath his feet. Locals regarded him with a mixture of awe and bewilderment. He was known as the greatest cave explorer ever known, a title earned through countless hours spent in solitude, wriggling his slender 140-pound frame through crevices that would terrify most men. For Floyd, caving was a calling, an almost spiritual pursuit. He moved through the earth with an uncanny intuition, reading the rock and sensing the flow of air, always searching for the next great discovery. His dream was to find a cave that would not only secure his family's fortune, but also rival the grandeur of Mammoth Cave itself. He wasn't just looking for a tourist trap. He was hunting for a legacy, a wonder of the world that would bear his name. His ambition soon fixated on a new target. Not a grand, promising cavern, but a humble, overlooked hole in the ground on a neighbor's farm. This was Sand Cave. On its own, it was nothing, but its location was everything. The entrance sat just a stone's throw from the Dixie Highway, the main artery carrying thousands of tourists directly to the doorstep of his competitors, including the famous Mammoth Cave. Every car that passed was a potential customer, a dollar bill driving by. Floyd, with his explorer's instinct, believed this unassuming opening was a secret doorway. He theorized that the small cave was merely the beginning of a much larger system, a hidden passage that might, with luck, connect to the legendary Colossal or even Mammoth Cave itself. Finding such a connection would be the ultimate jackpot, creating a back entrance that could intercept the flow of tourists and money. The land belonged to Beasley Doyle, a local farmer who had little interest in the dangerous work of cave exploration, but was keenly aware of the potential fortune lying beneath his fields. He and Floyd struck a deal, a partnership built on mutual desperation and hope. Doyle granted Floyd the rights to explore and develop Sand Cave. In return, Floyd, who had the skill and the courage but not the land, would do all the grueling, perilous work. They agreed to a 50-50 split of any profits from their potential tourist attraction. It was a classic frontier gamble. Doyle was betting his property on Floyd's expertise, and Floyd was betting his life on a hunch. With the agreement in place, Floyd Collins prepared to descend once more into the cold, silent darkness, unaware that this particular venture would not lead to fortune, but to a fate that would captivate a nation. On January 30th, 1925, Floyd ventured into Sand Cave with a kerosene lantern. He faced many challenges, including tight passages that required him to crawl. Unfortunately, while returning, he dislodged a heavy rock that trapped his ankle. This marked the beginning of his ordeal in Sand Cave. Once it was known that Floyd was trapped, rescue efforts began, attracting engineers, geologists, and cavers from the area. After conventional methods failed, miners attempted to dig a shaft to reach him. The efforts lasted 17 days, encountering many obstacles, including adverse weather and cave collapses. As the rescue unfolded, the situation attracted national attention, creating a carnival-like atmosphere at the cave entrance. Thousands of people arrived to witness the rescue, while reporters, including Willem Burke Miller, covered the story extensively, leading to national fame. After 17 days of relentless digging, a parallel shaft finally broke through into the passage near Floyd Collins. The date was February 16, 1925. A palpable tension hung in the cold, damp air, a mixture of hope and exhaustion that had gripped the nation for over 2 weeks. A miner named Ed Brenner was the first to crawl through the narrow opening. The scene that greeted him was one of profound stillness and tragedy. The beam from his lamp cut through the darkness, falling upon Floyd's trapped form. He was wedged tightly in the crawl space, his face turned away, a single kerosene lantern lying extinguished beside him. Brenner called out his name, but the only reply was the chilling silence of the cave. Floyd Collins was gone. The official coroner's report would later confirm what the rescuers knew in their hearts. He had succumbed to exposure, dehydration, and malnutrition, likely several days before they reached him. The agonizing race against time had been lost. Word of the discovery traveled quickly from the depths of the shaft to the surface. The low, somber message passed from worker to worker, and a wave of collective grief washed over the massive crowd that had maintained a vigil for 17 days. The carnival-like atmosphere evaporated, replaced by a stunned, mournful silence. Telegraphs clicked and clattered, sending the tragic news across the country and the world. The story that had held millions in rapt attention had reached its heartbreaking conclusion. The immediate challenge, however, was a grim one. The rescue shaft was too unstable and narrow to safely extricate Floyd's body. After much debate, engineers and the family made the heart-wrenching decision to leave him where he lay. The rescue shaft was filled in, and the main entrance to Sand Cave was sealed with concrete, transforming the site of a desperate rescue into a tomb. A brief, sorrowful funeral service was held at the entrance, a final farewell to the man the world had come to know. But Floyd's story and the journey of his mortal remains was far from over. 2 months later, his brother Homer, unable to bear the thought of Floyd being left in the darkness of Sand Cave, led his own excavation. He and a small crew succeeded where the larger effort had failed, finally bringing Floyd's body to the surface. Floyd was then buried on his family's farm, near the entrance to his beloved Crystal Cave. Yet even this resting place would not be his last. In a bizarre and macabre twist born from the commercialism of the cave wars, Floyd's father, Lee Collins, sold Crystal Cave. The new owner, seeking a unique and morbid attraction, had Floyd's body exhumed in 1927 and placed it in a glass-topped coffin for display deep within the cave. For decades, tourists paid to file past the remains of the famous explorer. The tragedy continued when his body was stolen in 1929, only to be recovered minus one leg in a nearby field. It wasn't until 1989, 64 years after his death, that Floyd Collins was finally given a permanent, peaceful burial at the Mammoth Cave Baptist Church Cemetery. The events of Floyd's life and tragic death became permanently embedded in the American psyche. It was a modern media spectacle broadcast into homes via the new technology of radio and chronicled in breathless detail by newspapers. Reporter William Skeets Miller, who bravely crawled into the cave to interview Floyd, won a Pulitzer Prize for his coverage, setting a new standard for immersive journalism. The story's potent themes of individual struggle, the power of nature, and the media's ravenous hunger have inspired countless artistic works. It formed the basis for Robert Penn Warren's novel The Cave, the acclaimed musical Floyd Collins, and Billy Wilder's cynical 1951 film Ace in the Hole, a scathing critique of the media circus that surrounded the event. Beyond the headlines and the macabre afterlife, Floyd Collins's most enduring legacy is written in the landscape itself. His tragedy threw a harsh national spotlight on the dangerous and unregulated cave wars of Kentucky. The public learned of the fierce competition that drove explorers like Floyd to take ever greater risks in the pursuit of discovery and fortune. The immense attention brought to the region highlighted not only its dangers, but also its unparalleled natural beauty and geological significance. The story became a powerful catalyst for the conservation movement. Providing a human cost to the argument for federal protection, it helped galvanize public and political support, contributing directly to the authorization of Mammoth Cave National Park in 1926 and its full establishment in 1941. In the end, the lonely death of one man in a tight, dark passage helped ensure the preservation of the entire magnificent cave system for generations to come. A quiet, sprawling, and protected monument to a life given to the caves.